David, should we start with Real Madrid? A week away from the La Liga season's kickoff. How are they looking?
I think they're looking in decent shape. I mean, you know, the Club World Cup was obviously a bit of a sour note for them. They really wanted to win that to the extent of, you know, paying an extra bit of money to get Trent Alexander-Arnold in early. It didn't go as planned. They've taken a lot of criticism, to be honest with you, in the Spanish press. You know, I mean, however people looked upon the Club World Cup in Spain and with Real Madrid, it was taken very, very seriously. They were seen as somebody who should be, you know, in the final at least, but they should be winning it. They didn't, so obviously there was a lot of fallout. Xabi Alonso has already come into question a little bit in terms of what he's trying to achieve and what he's trying to do there. I think a few of his tactics in the Club World Cup, you know, angered a few people in terms in the press. So that didn't go well. But I mean, if you look at the shape of the squad and how they are, they're in a very, very good position to challenge / win it in the way that they are. And I think they should be confident going into the season as well with that. But I mean, we've discussed this on the show many, many times before. I still think the key thing is absolutely going to be just how they get that front line functioning and working with the rest of the team and making sure it doesn't look like a separate entity.
It's interesting what David says there, though, Lars, about Real Madrid needing to strengthen their front line, because what they've done with the signing of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Dean Huyson from Bournemouth very early on is strengthen their defensive. Well, Trent Alexander-Arnold, defensive or not, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I don't, without putting words in David's mouth, I don't think he was necessarily talking about strengthening it. I think it's more a case of figuring out what it's supposed to look like. Because they have basically bought themselves a massive problem in the shape of Kylian Mbappe, possibly the best player in the world, but also a problem for them because their biggest star and like their attacking talisman before they brought in Mbappe was Vinicius Jr. Now, he, as we know, likes to start out in a slightly vaguely left side of the forward area position, likes to come inside, likes to try to either dribble the fullback or go inside and look for a shot. This is exactly what Kylian Mbappe wants to do. And a year on from adding Mbappe to this mix, they still haven't found a solution to the fact that their two biggest stars wants to do essentially the exact same thing on the pitch. We don't know what the solution to that is. And what we've learned from year one of this experiment is that Carlo Ancelotti wasn't able to find a very good solution to that. And Carlo Ancelotti is the king of having like great players foisted upon him and told, whatever, dude, just find a solution. Like, this is what he's always been very good at. And he wasn't really able to do it. And it's also the whole business of how this is meant to work off the ball, because you have two guys in Vinicius and Mbappe who don't put in a bunch of work in terms of pressing to win the ball back. So you're carrying two, I'm sorry, but passengers when you don't have the ball. We've seen from PSG that that's a difficult thing to do. We've also seen from PSG how much better you can be if you actually have 10 outfield players who work really hard. So I think there are question marks here, but they're not where you would think they would be. The question marks are where the squad is almost strongest. And I know that sounds bizarre, but that's kind of where we're at. And I was looking for, it's very harsh to expect Xabi Alonso to find solutions to this stuff during the Club World Cup when Mbappe wasn't fully fit for the whole camp, when it's just not that many training sessions, whatever. But I was watching their games pretty carefully thinking, okay, have they found some kind of genius shape that solves all of this? And I think the answer is very inconclusive. So I think they go into the league with an incredible squad. Of course they do. They're Real Madrid, with a very exciting young coach who's won the league in Germany with the Bundesliga. But they go into it with some real questions about how these pieces are meant to fit together, and the coach is meant to find the solutions is pretty inexperienced after all.
David, as Lars summed it up, because it seems unimaginable that it's taken a year and we're still at square one in terms of Real Madrid's, Vinny Mbappe dilemma, as it were. Okay, there's been a new coach since then, but if he's facing exactly the same thing, it suggests that the first coach's, year with that dilemma was unresolved and perhaps quite inefficient.
Yeah, I think so. And look, it's a big part of the reason, and there's many reasons for bringing Xabi Alonso in, but I think the reason is that he can provide that structure. That is the hope, that he can find something that allows Vinny and Mbappe to thrive in an attacking sense, but also so they're not, as Lars has said, passengers in this system. The early signs are, and look, that PSG game, the game against PSG, really brought everything home on so many levels, in the fact that there was no structure there, but also it continued the narrative of, oh, PSG are far, far better without Mbappe, but now Real Madrid, now he's your problem, sort of thing. So it's like he's been handed over to them. He's now your problem. You fix it. In the meantime, while he's been gone, PSG have thrived. They've won everything before them. And that doesn't help matters either. That adds a lot of pressure on. And, PSG are seen as the cool team now, seen as the big boys in Europe now as well. And Florentino Perez doesn't like that. Like, he wants Real Madrid to be on the top all the time. He wants to be the team everybody talks about all the time. And that's another side to it as well, which just only increases pressure on Xabi Alonso. So yeah, he's got a lot of work on. He really, really has.
I think many of us will know what Trent Alexander-Arnold can bring to the team, and Dean Huyson as well. But what about Alvaro Carreras from Benfica, David? Well, what's his role going to be?
Yeah, they've been desperate for this kind of, vibrant presence at fullback for some time on the left side. They see him as somebody, a good young talent that they can work with and develop into an elite left back. He's already shown out on loan at Benfica how impressive he is and how talented he is. So, Real Madrid have a big belief in him, and they hope that. And look, he's not going to be a starter straight away. He's going to dip in and out, but I think eventually by the end of the season he will be a starter. But the plan is, that going forward, that Trent Alexander-Arnold and Alvaro Carreras are the starting fullbacks, and that will give it will give Xabi Alonso a chance to utilize something that he did so well at Bayer Leverkusen, and that's in terms of pushing his fullbacks on in the way they did, that they were almost part of the attacking line. That's the ultimate goal here. So it's an interesting science, an exciting one, definitely. Real Madrid shown that they will not just sign, Galactico style young talent, but they're also willing to take a talent, because Carreras is still kind of on the radar, in a way. So they feel that they can work with him and really bring him on as a player.
One thing we did see at the Club World Cup, which I thought was interesting, and again, we should maybe be cautious about reading too much into this tournament, but against Juventus, they played with a back three. And I thought that was interesting, because the idea of converting this gradually to a back three team, it allows Trent Alexander-Arnold to play as a wing back, which is probably better for him, really. A lot of time, it's certainly something you want in your locker. It maybe is a structure that you can have. Let's say you have Vinicius and Mbappe up front and Bellingham as a 10 or something. That could be pretty cool. Maybe you drop. I mean, what they did in that game, they dropped Tchouaméni in as a defender, so he could kind of transition between defense and midfield. That's kind of interesting. Carreras is very attack-minded left back. Maybe that could be a kind of a solution. But that also makes me wonder. I mean, in that game, he played in central midfield, Arda Güler, and he was very good in that game, actually, because that's another piece of the puzzle that Xabi Alonso has to figure out. Because Arda Güler, I think, has shown enough now that he needs minutes this year. He needs serious minutes. It's a case of use him, lose him, I think. He's still very young, but he is so talented. And I think if he doesn't get serious minutes for this team this year, he will be within his rights to start thinking, I have to go somewhere else. And he is clearly someone Real Madrid do not want to lose. So you got to figure out how he fits into all of this as well. So listen, they have a phenomenal squad of great players, but I don't see an obvious solution to how it all fits together. But of course, that's why I don't get paid the same money that Xabi Alonso does. It's his job to find the solution to this, and I am absolutely fascinated to see what he comes up with.
Yeah,
I would argue that's why you don't get paid the same money than I do. But sorry, David, I interrupted you.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
wait, I don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts to this, absolutely, and Güler is a really interesting one because they've got so many players for these positions, so many young players to rotate around. Don't forget, Dani Ceballos is still at the club as well, and I think Ancelotti grew fond of him. It'll be interesting to see what Xabi Alonso thinks of him as well, because I sometimes think Dani Ceballos is either love or hate. So it'll be interesting to see where things go with Alonso and him. But Güler is a really interesting one because And Lars has hit the nail on the head there in the fact that, he wants to be, I think he'll try and show that he's a part of this team going forward, the starting team going forward. And if that doesn't come about, then he will have to look elsewhere. And look, we saw a great case study with Martin Odegaard as well, who didn't get the minutes at Real Madrid and didn't get the platform to develop that he wanted. So he went to Real Sociedad, was an immense success there. Got a big move to Arsenal and, is a key player there. So Goulet will see that and say, well, look, it can be done.
Although, having said that, Arda Güler, who's one of my favourite players, I can't lie, he has seemed to fill in the Luka Modric leaving slot. I mean, that was kind of we saw the baton being passed over, didn't we, in the Club World Cup. Having said that, though, I wonder, David, whether it's the same in Spain that when you discuss Real Madrid, you necessarily have to then discuss Barcelona. What are they doing as opposed to what Real Madrid have done over the summer transfer window? Barcelona haven't done that much business, have they, really?
They've not done that much business, but there's an argument they probably didn't need to do too much anyway, so they only need to make a few tweaks. But that all being said, they still haven't avoided another just chaotic summer. Once again, just madness. All started with the Nico Williams saga. That played on. It went on. It's finally ended now after 2-3 years of that rolling on. He decided to sign a new contract at Athletic Club de Bilbao. He was keen on going to Barcelona, but he wasn't really offered assurances that he would be registered, as we saw Dani Olmo sitting in the stands waiting for his number to come through on the squad. And that's what happened there. So Nico Williams said, look, I'm not being part of that. I want to play. So he stayed. They got Rashford. That was fairly smooth, I think, in the end, by Barcelona standards, at least. So they got him in, so that they've got that competition in the forward line. It puts a bit of pressure on the three up top as well, and that's a bit of healthy competition there, which is all good for them. Joan Garcia, very, very good goalkeeper from Espanyol, really good goalkeeper. Which brings us on to the latest saga, which is with Ter Stegen, in the fact that Barcelona have not kept it a secret. They've wanted Ter Stegen out for quite a while. He's had a few rows with Hansi Flick. His form's been a little bit underwhelming. And now it's a case of he won't go. And Barcelona's not happy about that. But look, they gave this guy a lucrative contract. He's still got 3 years to go. He's on nice money. And he's been smart about it. And I think Barcelona are looking for loopholes to try and get out of it. In terms of there's a little injury clause in the Liga system that they could get away with, paying half of his wages and such. So they're trying to get around every little loophole like that, like Barca do. But yeah, it's another situation that that isn't ideal leading up right to the brand new season.
David summed it up, but Barcelona at the end of the day, they're not as bad a summer transfer fiasco as last season. And they started off early this season as well, which is a good sign, I suppose.
No, do you know why they haven't signed a lot of players? They have no money. They can't register anyone. Like you can't listen. These guys they brought in, the goalkeeper Rashford, they haven't registered them to play because they can't register them. Like they still need to find a way to open up space in the wage bills. They're trying to push their goalkeeper, who's still technically their captain, I believe, Ter Stegen, out of the club, so that they can register the guys they've already brought in. It's another nonsensical summer from Barcelona, as it always is. So I actually want to expand on the thing David mentioned with Ter Stegen. It's a little bit in the weeds, but I think it is fascinating. So Ter Stegen doesn't want to leave. He's had an operation on his lower back this summer, and the system in La Liga is if a player is going to be out for 4 months or more, you can write off 50% of their wages from the salary cap. And if he's out for more than 5 months, you can write off 80% of his wages from the salary cap. So Barcelona want to send a medical report to La Liga saying, this dude is injured for this long, so we can free up that money from the salary cap so that we can register the new goalkeeper. Right? That's what they're trying to do. Because currently they can't register the new goalkeeper. Now, Ter Stegen he is insisting that he will be back in 3 months and is refusing to sort of sign off on the medical reports going to La Liga. So Barcelona have started a disciplinary process against their own player for not playing ball here. Whereas, of course, from Ter Stegen's perspective, he probably doesn't want to sign off on a piece of paper that allows them to register his replacement. He's probably not keen on that. He wants to get fit as soon as he can and be back in goal. Like, this is a mess, yet again. How can you not sort this stuff out before you sign a new goalkeeper, Barcelona? I keep getting ads on Instagram for, like, go to the FC Barcelona sports management course. You know what? No, thank you. I'm watching this club from afar. That is not where I want to learn sports management. Like, whatever it is you're doing, you shouldn't be teaching it. Like, this is yet another summer, but it's just completely nonsensical behavior. Rashford also hasn't been registered, but he's very confident. This is something the club will have to sort out, he says. We will see. So, like, whenever you see Barcelona linked with anyone in the gossip columns, just ignore that. They can't sign anyone. They can't even register the guys they have.
Of course, Joan Laporta, he's, everything is fine. We can sign whoever we want. So, when they're linked to players, you'll go, oh, yes, we might be interested in them. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be anyone. They'll always say, oh, we're interested in them. And he's given off this spiel that everything's fine at Barcelona when it clearly still isn't. He comes out at the end of every season. He says, look, we're 1-1 with the La Liga salary rule, with the La Liga rule. We're fine. We're okay. And then it comes to a situation like that. They are clearly not. He's lying. He's just gaslighting fans constantly.
Joan Laporta, a man with many qualities, but I would not buy a used car from him.
He's not selling any, so good for you.
Maybe you should. They could register some new players.
Here we are talking about Real Madrid and Barcelona, David, almost as if La Liga is once again a two-horse race. I say once again because, of course, it hasn't been a two-horse race simply for a few seasons now. This season, Atleti, can they pose a threat to the dominance of those two big clubs in La Liga?
There's always an element of opportunism there. Look, we just discussed Real Madrid and we said they have things to figure out with their system, getting things working there. We've talked a little on Barca's mess. We don't know. I think they brought enough signings. I think they're quite fine if they can register them. And that squad still looks really healthy. But Atleti will look upon that and just say, look, can we once again take advantage of the situation the other two are in? Because everything at Atleti is quite calm. They've got in the signings they wanted, more or less. I know they really, really wanted Cristiano Romero from Tottenham, but that didn't happen. I think they got priced out a little bit there, so they got another very good defender in instead, David Hanko. So I think, and then if you look around the rest of the squad, the players that they have brought in, it is very exciting. They signed one of my favourite players in Spain now for a number of years, in Alex Baena from Villarreal. Tricky little attacking midfielder. So Arsene Wenger would really like and would have brought to Arsenal if he was still there. That type of player. You get my drift. So yeah, they're switching things up a little bit. They brought Thiago Almeida in as well. And it's very exciting. There's a new look to Atleti, and it's a younger look as well. And there's an element of like, is Simeone again trying to push hard on freshening things up and giving Atleti a new look and getting out of this, it's a bit of a typecasting that they have around them. And it'll be interesting to see how they mold together, because there's a lot of new signings for Atleti that they've brought in. And there may be more to come as well.
Yeah, they haven't gotten the signing of Giacomo Raspadori over the line as we speak, Lars, from Napoli. However, he does sound like an interesting prospect for them as well. Can you see them posing a threat to the two big names in La Liga this season?
Well, Dalton, it's this time of the year again. Regular listeners will know. We come to my favorite saying in the world, which is, you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun your sister. Or you don't have to don't have to outrun the tiger, you just have to outrun all the other zookeepers. Like, there's a lot of stuff we can. This goes for many animals. But the point is, it's hard to assess like Atleti's title credentials without knowing what Real Madrid and Barcelona will do, right? Because they are a little bit better. If either one of them or both fire at all cylinders this season, I don't think Atleti have really what it takes to keep up with them. But as we've just discussed, there are reasons to think they might not. I think there is definitely a world where Xabi Alonso doesn't quite figure out how to fit this Real Madrid team together, and they have some trouble. Barcelona, for all the habitual nonsense off the pitch, on the pitch they look pretty good. They were a very good team last year. All the pieces are kind of there. But it's the second season of Hansi Flick. It's this sort of very, very intensive, aggressive, high press, high line. Maybe haven't refreshed the squad a lot. Maybe some guys get a little tired. I mean, we can speculate. We can find reasons. And my point being, if one or both of them drop off, I think Atleti should be in good shape. They've done this process, this gradual sort of generational shift they're doing, and do you know who has scored the most goals in La Liga per 90 minutes on the field? If you average it out for minutes played amongst the regular players last season, it was not Kylian Mbappe, it was not Robert Lewandowski, it was Alexander Sørloth. It was the Viking King. So, okay, Atleti are linked to Raspadori. Yeah, he's a clever finisher. They have Julian Alvarez there, but, give Alex some more minutes. Start him every game, he can get it done for them.
David, I do wonder, I can't help wondering whether the Club World Cup will have an impact on this season in La Liga, because, of course, Real Madrid that we're talking about, they went all the way to the semi-final and then got thrashed 4-0 by PSG. Barcelona have had a lot more time to prepare for this season, I'd have thought, than Real Madrid. Does that make them the favourites, if not Atleti?
I mean, it's worth saying as well, in terms of stories from Liga, Real Madrid are incredibly grumpy that they're having to start the season on time, because they wanted more time off because of the Club World Cup. They haven't had it, and they are enormously angry about this. In the same way, I mean, they have no chill, Real Madrid. Every time something goes against them, they whinge an awful lot, and this is happening again now. With the top of La Liga often being very, very tight, if this fact that they haven't had the rest that they wanted means Real Madrid, who again have some things to figure out, come into the season a little half-cooked and drop a few more points in the first 2 months of the season than they normally would have, that could end up having an effect on things, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's been a lot of analysis done about this as well that I've been reading about, in terms of, teams are going to have to plan, who were in the Club World Cup are going to have to plan especially well for the final third of the season, because they're expecting kind of the fatigue to hit in then. And if your squad isn't big enough, if you haven't rotated correctly, I think there's more pressure on you there to get that right than ever before. Don't get me wrong, rotation is key no matter what. But I think this year, for those teams that have taken part in the Club World Cup, then even more so. I think Real Madrid have probably got the depth there in most areas. I think they could be confident of saying, look, we'll be fine with it. So yeah, it is going to be, and it's like I said at the start when we were discussing Atleti, it is opportunism. It is looking at what other clubs are doing and how you can capitalise there. And don't get me wrong, each team's going to have their blips. Atleti's going to, just because Atleti and Barca weren't in the Club World Cup doesn't mean that they're not going to have their blips. They're not going to they get fatigued at certain times as well. Teams are still playing a lot of games across the course of the season, so they're going to have big blips at different times.
Do you know what you've done there? You've ensured that we follow the La Liga season to the very end, because it does sound like that final third of the season is going to be where the business is done. Yeah. So thank you for that. I can't wait, actually. It sounds like it's going to be a fascinating season.